Hey, what's up everyone? Welcome back to Babylon Talmud. Today we're studying Daf Lamed Beis, Daf 32 of Masechta Pesachim. Daf Lamed Beis really deals with terumah. If you eat terumah by accident, if you eat terumah on purpose, if you eat terumah of chametz, this is basically going to be the focus of our daf today. There will be a machlokas in terms of, is the main thing by eating, when you pay back terumah, is it the value of what you ate that you're paying back, or is it the amount that you ate? Nafkamin, of course, where does chametz fit in? Chametz is asur ba'ana. If you're not Rabbi Yossi Aglili, it doesn't have value. Okay, that's what we're going to discuss. And the quantity of accidental terumah, how much terumah do you have to eat by accident, or what value do you have to eat by accident? These are all sugyas we will be getting to in just a few minutes. We are on Daf Lamed Aleph Amud Beis at the Mishnah towards the bottom. Ha'ochel trumas chametz bepesach b'shogeg mishalem keren v'chomesh b'mezid patur mitashlumin umidmei eitzim. That is the Mishnah. And what it means is, let's do it slowly. Ha'ochel trumas chametz bepesach. Somebody who eats terumah on Pesach, and that terumah is chametz, b'shogeg mishalim keren v'chomesh. So if he did it by accident, so then he'll pay the principal that he ate, okay, plus a fifth. A fifth, of course, being a quarter. We all know that by now. Now, if he eats these inyonim, if he eats this terumah on purpose, well, interestingly, what then happens is that it's not about the amount anymore. It's about the value. Wait, I didn't explain something. So, when we're talking about if you eat terumah, that's chametz on Pesach, so you pay the principal plus a fifth. So here's the interesting thing. Of course, chametz is also ba'ana, assuming you're not Rabbi Yossi Aglili. So chametz is also ba'ana, and if it's also ba'ana, it doesn't have any value. So the question is, what's happening behind the scenes when you pay the principal plus a fifth upon eating terumah by accident? So if we say, hey, look, brother, you ate terumah by accident, therefore you have to pay back the value that you ate plus a fifth. Well, here's the thing. Chametz doesn't have any value. So therefore you shouldn't have to pay back anything. From the fact that we're saying you have to pay back the principal plus a fifth, so perhaps this is an indication, and let's assume for now that this is an indication that you're not paying back the value, because chametz doesn't have value, so then you wouldn't have to pay anything back. What you're paying back is the amount that you ate. You ate 4 apples. You pay back 4 apples, whether those apples are worth nothing, whether those apples are worth $1 million. It makes no difference. You ate 4 apples, you pay back 4 apples. And therefore, on Pesach, even though these 4 apples, well, in this case, apples mistama wouldn't be chametz, but let's say it wasn't apples, let's say it was wheat, and these wheat somehow became chametz. So, even though if it's chametz, it doesn't have any value, that's not the point. The point is that you don't pay back the value of what you ate, you pay back the amount that you ate. And therefore, even chametz on Pesach, you would still be paying keren v'chomesh, the principal plus a fifth. Now, if you did it on purpose, however, if you ate this chametz of terumah on Pesach on purpose, well, at that point, it's no longer you're not just paying the amount. In this case, you're basically a thief, right? You stole this terumah that's chametz. You stole it from the Kohen. So if you did it on purpose, well, then you just have to pay back the value like any other thief. And the chametz doesn't have any value because it's Pesach. So in that case, you would be patur from having to pay, which is what the Mishnah says. B'mezid, if you stole this, if you ate this chametz on Pesach, that's terumah, on purpose, well then, patur mitashlumin umidmei eitzim, then you wouldn't have to pay back the principal, because terumah on Pesach doesn't have any chametz on Pesach doesn't have any value, and therefore you would only have to be paying back the value at this point, like any other thief, since you did it on purpose. Chametz doesn't have any value, therefore you don't have to pay anything back. What's this Tamei Eitzim thing? What's the value of wood? The value of wood is a reference to Truma Tameya, right? Who can tell me what happens if you have Truma and it's Tameh? You can't eat it, but of course you could burn it, right? If you need firewood, you can use the Truma Tameya as firewood. So in this case, you would not have, if you took this Truma of Chametz on Pesach on purpose, you wouldn't have to pay back its value, and you wouldn't even have to pay its value as firewood if it was Tameh either. Okay? Very good. So we just explained that Mishnah from the perspective of that when you eat Truma by accident, what you're paying back is not the value that you ate, but it's the amount that you ate. If you ate it on purpose, then you'd pay back the value like a thief. But when you eat it by accident, this keren v'chomesh is not the value that you ate, it's the amount that you ate, and that is why you'd be chayiv to pay back the keren v'chomesh even on Pesach. It's not Hasam. We learn in a Mishnah in Trumas, ha'ochel Truma b'shogeg. Somebody who eats Truma by accident, mishalim keren v'chomesh. Okay, so you pay back, and this is talking about Truma in general. If you eat Truma by accident, you pay back the principal that you ate plus a fifth. This is whether you ate the Truma, whether you drank the Truma, whether you rubbed Truma oil into your skin. Interestingly, whether this Truma is Tameh, whether this Truma is Tahor. Mishalim chomesh v'chumsha d'chumsha, you have to pay the principal amount plus a fifth. And now interestingly, what happens is that when you pay back this keren v'chomesh, it actually becomes Truma itself. So you're not just paying back the Truma, but you're actually replacing his Truma, right? So if you ate 4 apples, so you pay back 5 apples, and those 5 apples actually become Truma. And therefore, if you then accidentally eat the 5 apples that you just paid back, you'd pay an additional fifth for that, extra apple that you added. You'd have to pay a chomesh on that, whatever. It's a very technical kind of thing. The point is, if you eat Truma by accident, you pay keren v'chomesh. Fine. Hibaylu, they asked the kasha, Mishalim, okay, when this fellow who ate Truma by accident is paying back the koyin what he ate, plus a fifth, Lefi mida mishalim or lefi dam mishalim, does he pay based on amount or based on value? This is the question that we want to know, right? We've been discussing it up until now. This question of when you eat Truma by accident and then you pay back keren v'chomesh, are you paying back the value of what you ate, or are you paying back the amount that you ate? We've been assuming until now that you're paying back the amount that you ate, but the Gemara now wants to know, is this the case? What's going on here? Amount, value, what do we say? They ask the kasha, when you're paying that keren v'chomesh for eating Truma by accident, are you paying the amount that you ate? You ate 4 apples, you pay back 4 apples, or are you paying back the value that you ate? 4 apples has a certain market value. You have to pay back that value, of course, in apples, not in money. So says the Gemara, so says the Gemara, let's read that again. So if you stole 4 apples, and at the time that you stole the 4 apples were worth 4 zuz. But then by the time that it came to paying, I don't know if I said stole, but if you ate Truma that was 4 apples by accident, and it was initially worth 4 zuz, now the price of 4 apples was worth 1 zuz. Okay, so it went down. So certainly you're going to have to pay back based on value, right? To Lugar Migazlan, because it's no less than a thief. That anybody who steals pays back like the time of the theft. Meaning, even if you want to say that when you pay the keren v'chomesh, it's based on amount, not based on value, and therefore you stole 4 not stole, I keep on saying stole, you ate by accident 4 apples that were terumah, so you have to pay back 4 apples. And now, even if midoraisa meikar adin, we say that that's enough, and therefore, even though at the time that you stole the 4 apples, even at the time that you ate the 4 apples, they were worth 4 zuz, and now they're worth 1 zuz, that makes no difference. What's important is the amount. And therefore, when you pay back 4 apples, so that's enough. And even though at the time that you ate them it was 4 zuz, and now it's 1 zuz, okay, that makes no difference. I did my obligation of replacing what I ate. But nonetheless, says the Gemara, the fact of the matter is, you still need to pay back the additional 3 zuz to the kohen for the, for what you caused him to lose. Right? And as the Gemara says, Tilo gara migazlan. It's no different than any other time when let's say you have a gazlan, a type of thief who steals from somebody else. He has to replace what he stole based on the value it was worth at the time that he stole it. So here also, you caused monetary damage to this kohen by eating his 4 apples, so you have to pay him back. I don't know if I said stealing again, but by eating his 4 apples of terumah, so you have to pay him back the value that you took, which was 4 zuz at the time. And therefore, even though by paying back 4 apples, you've satisfied your obligation vis-a-vis your requirement to replace the 4 apples that you took that were terumah, but you still have to go further and replace the financial damage that you caused him, which would be to pay him the additional 3 zuz. So in that case, when 4 apples were initially worth 4 zuz, and now they're worth 1 zuz, so it wouldn't be enough to simply replace the 4 apples. You would have to actually, I guess in this case, replace 16 apples. What we want to know is the meikar shav yazuzah v'sof shav yarba'a. What we want to know is that if at the time that you ate the apples, 4 apples were going for 1 zuz, and now they quadrupled in price, and now 4 apples are going for 4 zuz. So, in this case, do you have to? So, what do we say? Do we say that you pay based on the amount? That we say, look, you ate 4 apples, you got to pay back 4 apples. I don't care that at the time 4 apples were worth 1 zuz, and now they're worth 4 zuz. You got to pay back the amount that you took, that you ate. Or Dilmore, perhaps the fidama mishalim, or maybe he's got to pay back the value, i.e. 1 zuz. He ate a zuz, he's only got to replace 1 apple, which is not currently 1 zuz. That is what we want to know. Because at the end of the day, the financial loss that he caused to the kohen was really only 1 zuz. So, and therefore, do we say that it's based on the value, and therefore, even though what you'd be paying back is apples, you're not paying back money, but do we say that the amount of apples that you're paying back is based on their value in money, in which case it would just be 1 zuz? Or do we say that no, you literally have to pay back the number of apples that you took? Amr of Yosef Tashma says, Rav Yosef, I'll tell you a brisa. Achol grogris v'shilim lo tamarim, that if a person by accident ate figs of terumah, and he paid back the kohen in dates, Tavo alav bracha, wow, what a geshmaka yid, he should be blessed. Now, Yomut b'shlam lefi mida mishalim, so I understand if we're saying that you pay back based on amount, amtu alahachi, Tavo alav bracha. That's why we're saying that this guy should be so blessed. Because he ate an amount of figs that were worth merely 1 zuz. And he's replacing it with that same measure of dates, but that same measure of dates is worth 4 times the amount. So wow, what a geshmaka yid, and he should be blessed. Okay? But if you say that you pay based on value, well then, what's the big deal? Why should he be so blessed? He ate a zuz worth of figs, Maybe he had to eat 4 of them. And he's replacing it with a zuz worth of dates. Maybe it's just 1 date. But at the end of the day, he ate a certain amount. He's replacing that amount. So who cares if it's figs? Who cares if it's dates? Maybe you'll get more of one, less of the other, but the value is the same. Amar Abaye says, Abaye le'olam l'fidam v'shalim. No, really you could still argue that he is paying back based on value. If that's the case, then what's the big deal? How come he should be blessed? Aha. So Abaye says, well, because dates are much more desirable than figs, and therefore, even though he's paying back the same amount, the same value that he ate, but in terms of as a product, a fig is a more desirable product than a date, because the opposite. A date is a more desirable product than a fig, because dates people are just jumping to purchase, whereas figs are not. So therefore, having 4 figs is less desirable than having 1 date, because that 1 date you'll be able to sell quickly, whereas the 4 figs may take longer. Okay, so that's not necessarily a proof that we pay back based on amount. Tanan, we learned in our Mishnah, so we had said, of course, in our Mishnah, that if somebody eats terumah of chametz on Pesach, so he's got to pay the keren v'chomesh, pays the principal plus the amount, plus a fifth. So if we're saying that he pays based on amount, well then that makes sense, right? As we explained earlier, even though chametz on Pesach is also ba'ana, and therefore there's no value, that doesn't matter. You're not paying back value. You're paying back amount, and therefore you'll just pay back the amount plus a fifth. But if you say that what you're paying back for terumah is value, chametz b'Pesach b'damim hu. Does chametz on Pesach have any value? So from the fact that you're paying back keren v'chomesh from this terumah of chametz, clearly it's amount and not value. So the Gemara says, actually, chametz does have value. Hamani Rabbi Yosei Aglili. This Mishnah is actually Rabbi Yosei Aglili. Damar chametz b'Pesach mutar ba'ana. That Rabbi Yosei Aglili says that chametz on Pesach is mutar ba'ana, and therefore if it's mutar ba'ana, so then it has value. And therefore, if it has value, what you're paying, you can argue that what you're paying back for the keren v'chomesh of the terumah of chametz that you ate is actually the value of the chametz. Ihachi ema seifa. But if that's the case, that it's Rabbi Yosei Aglili, and that it's talking about where you're paying value because it's mutar ba'ana, well then ema seifa. Let me continue reading in the Mishnah where we say, that if you ate this terumah of chametz on purpose, well then you don't have to pay anything back. If you're Rabbi Yosei Aglili, that chametz on Pesach has value and it's mutar ba'ana, so then why, when you eat the terumah of chametz on Pesach, would you be completely potter from having to pay anything back? It shouldn't be any different than when you generally eat terumah on purpose, which is you have to pay back the value, the principal that you ate. And therefore, from the fact that we're saying that you don't, it must be because since you basically stole them and you have to pay back the value, and these don't have any value, that's why you're going to be potter. So that must not be like Rabbi Yosei Aglili, who says that they do have value. So the Gemara answers, no, you can say that it still is Rabbi Yosei Aglili. So why are you not paying anything back? So Savla Rabbi Nechunya ben Akane, because Rabbi Yosei Aglili holds like Rabbi Nechunya ben Akana, or at least the author of our Mishnah does, but I guess we're saying that's Rabbi Yosei Aglili. The Tanya is, we learn in the Brayso, Rabbi Nechunya ben Akana, Hayosas Yom Kippurim Keshabbos Tashlumin V'chulei, that Rabbi Nechunya ben Akana would make Yom Kippur like Shabbos regarding payment, right? that if you burn down some kind of pile of grain on Shabbos or on Yom Kippur, so you would have to, not only would you be chayiv kares on Yom Kippur, but you would also have to pay back. Since you are chayiv kares for burning down this pile on Yom Kippur, therefore you're patur from having to pay back the damage that you caused. So here also, since you're going to be chayiv kares for eating the chametz, you're going to be patur from paying back the principal. Okay. Kitanoi. So says the Gemara, let's say that this question of do you pay back truma based on value or based on amount, let's say it's machlokas tanoim. Why not? Ha'ochel trumas chametz b'Pesach patur min hatashlumin u'midme'esim divrei Rabbi Akiva. Interesting. So says Rabbi Akiva. Who doesn't love Rabbi Akiva? I don't know. Everyone does. I think everyone loves him. Ha'ochel trumas chametz b'Pesach. So somebody who eats truma of chametz on Pesach, okay, even by accident, patur min hatashlumin u'midme'esim divrei Rabbi Akiva. You do not need to pay back keren v'chomesh. If it's tameh, you don't need to pay the value in firewood. Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri mechayev. Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri says that you do need to pay back the truma of chametz that you ate. Amar Rabbi Akiva, Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri. Says Rabbi Akiva to Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri, v'chi mahanoya yesh lo ba. So he says to Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri, why would you have to pay back anything to the coin? What's he going to be able to do with this chametz? Amar lo Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri, Rabbi Akiva. So Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri says to Rabbi Akiva, mahanoya yesh lo ochel truma tmeya v'shayim osashana shemishalim. Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri says, well, I don't know, the entire year, if somebody eats truma tmeya by accident, so he's got to pay back keren v'chomesh to the kohen, as we saw at the top of the page. What's the kohen going to do with truma tmeya? And yet, it needs to be paid back. So here also, I don't know what he's going to do with this chametz, but you still have to pay it back. Amrlo, Rabbi Akiva says to Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri, what do you mean that truma tmeya, there's nothing to do with it? Lo amat b'truma tmeya b'shayim osashana shafal she'en lo ba'eter achila yesh lo ba'eter asaka. That when it comes to truma tmeya, you might not be able to eat it, the kohen might not be able to eat it, but he could burn it, and therefore it does have value. Right? There is something that you can do with it. Tomer bazeh, are you going to compare that to chametz, she'en lo ba'eter achila v'lo heter asaka, where you can't eat it nor burn it? There's nothing you can do with it. Therefore, says Rabbi Akiva, if you eat chametz on Pesach, whether it's on purpose, whether it's by accident, whatever it is, you don't have to pay anything back. Okay? If it's truma. Holamazedoma, continues Rabbi Akiva, what's this similar to? The trumas tutim va'anovim shenitma. For example, if you have truma that was mulberries or grapes, and they became tameh, she'ein lo ba lo heter chilav lo heter asaka, that obviously you can't eat it because it's truma tameya, but you also can't burn it, because what are you going to burn? These aren't like burning kind of things, mulberries and grapes. Okay, so therefore says Rabbi Akiva that you do not need to pay back this chametz of truma on Pesach, and Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri says that you do. Okay. When we're talking about chametz, truma, what are we talking about? My answer is b'mafish truma ve'chmitza. It's talking about when you separate truma, let's say wheat or something, ve'chmitza, and then it became chametz. Aval mafish trumas chametz teve'akol eina kedusha. But if you mamish separate chametz as truma on Pesach, well, it's not going to actually be considered truma. Tani Ida, we learn in another similar brayso, v'nosan l'kohen es hakodesh, that it says in the pasuk that if somebody eats truma by accident, so he gives the kohen the kodesh. Davar roi lios kodesh, it needs to be something that is fit to be kodesh, something that's fit to be truma. Prad ochel trumas chametz b'Pesach, shepatum min hatashlumin midmei eitzim tivir b'leis ben Yaakov. Now this excludes chametz on Pesach, that if you eat chametz of truma on Pesach by accident, you would not need to pay back anything, not keren, not chomesh, not value in firewood if it's tameh. For Rabbi Elazar Chisma mechayev, whereas Rabbi Elazar Chisma says, no, he certainly would need to pay back the keren and chomesh. Amar Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov Rabbi Elazar Chisma. So says Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov to Rabbi Elazar Chisma, so what benefit? Right, so Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov, who says that he's potter from having to pay anything back, says to Rabbi Elazar Chisma, he says, why would he have to pay anything back? What benefit can the Kohen get from this chametz on Pesach? Amar lo, Rabbi Elazar Chisma, Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov, v'chimana yesh lo chotshuma v'shayimos hashana shemishalim. So says Rabbi Elazar Chisma, the same thing that Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri said to Rabbi Akiva. Well, the entire year, if somebody eats truma tmeya by accident, he pays that back. What's the Kohen going to do with truma tmeya? Amar lo, Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov said, just like Rabbi Akiva said, lo im amar b'truma tmeya b'shayimos hashana shafal pi she'ein lo ba heter achila yesh lo ba heter asaka. Well, when it comes to truma tmeya, the Kohen might not be allowed to eat it, but he could burn it. Tomar b'zo she'ein lo ba heter achila v'lo heter asaka. Are you really going to compare that to chametz, which the Kohen can mamish do nothing with, can't eat it, can't burn it? Amar lo, to which Rabbi Elazar Chisma says, what do you mean he can't burn it? Of course he could burn it. If the Kohen wants, he could take this truma of chametz and give it to his dog. He could use it as firewood to put under his pot. No problem, because Rabbi Elazar Chisma holds like Rabbi Yossi Aglili that you're allowed to get hana'ah from chametz. Now, cheveh, here we're going to push it, tie it back in, right? We had said, right, we had brought all of these two brises to prove or to argue that whether we say that what you're paying back for truma that you eat b'shogeg is value based or amount based, we wanted to say that's a machlokas tanaim. Here we're going to tie it in and see who says what. Amar Abaye, says Abaye, Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov, Rabbi Akiva, Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri, Kulu Svir Lu Chametz B'Pesach Hasubana. Okay, so it says Abaye that Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov, Rabbi Akiva, Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri, they all hold that Chametz on Pesach is Osir Ba'ana, and Rabbi Elazar Chisma holds, like Rabbi Yossi Aglili, that Chametz on Pesach is Mutar Ba'ana. Uvha Plige, and this is how we can understand the Machloksin. Rabbi Akiva Savar Lefi Damim Mishalin. Rabbi Akiva, who says that if you eat truma of chametz by accident on Pesach, so you're potter from paying back keren v'chomesh. Well, he says lefi damim mishalim, because you're paying back value, and chametz on Pesach is also bana, and there's no value. Therefore, you're potter from paying. For Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri savar lefi mida mishalim, whereas Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri agrees that chametz on Pesach is valueless, is also bana and valueless. However, you're not paying back the value, you're paying back the amount. And that's why Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri says that if you eat truma of chametz on Pesach, you still have to pay back the keren v'chomesh. Pshita. This is obvious. Of course that's the machlokas. Well, it's not so obvious, because Ma'udetema, I may have thought, Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri, Nami Rabbi Akiva Svirle, Dam Lefi Dam Mishalim. Well, because I can argue that Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri actually agrees with Rabbi Akiva that what you're paying back is actually the amount, the value. If you're paying back the value, I thought chametz on Pesach doesn't have value. And I may have thought to say that the reason why Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri is saying that you have to pay back the truma of chametz that you ate is because even though you're paying back the value, maybe Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri holds like Rabbi Yossi Aglili that chametz on Pesach is mutar b'ana, and it has value, and that's why you're paying it back. Kamash Malon, that is why Abaye had to teach us that Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri holds, like Rabbi Akiva and like Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov, that chametz on Pesach is also b'ana, and that the reason why Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri says that you pay it back nonetheless is because it's based on amount, not based on value. Ve'ema achinami, to which the Gemara says, well, wait, maybe that sounded sane. Why don't we say that? Why don't we say that maybe Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri holds like Rabbi Yossi Aglili that chametz on Pesach is mutar b'ana and has value, and he's paying back the value? So the Gemara says, "Imkein nahadu le Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri le Rabbi Akiva ki echi de mahadu le Rabbi Elazar Chisma le Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov." So the Gemara answers, well, because if Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri held like Rabbi Yossi Aglili that chametz on Pesach is mutar ba'ana'ah, well then he would have responded to Rabbi Akiva in the same way that Rabbi Elazar Chisma responded to Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov, namely, what do you mean that there's nothing that the Kohen can't do anything with terumah of chametz on Pesach? He could use it to burn and to cook with in his fire. Rabbi Elazar Chisma responded like that to Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov, and we see from there that Rabbi Elazar Chisma holds like Rabbi Yossi Aglili that chametz on Pesach is mutar ba'ana'ah. So if Rabbi Yochanan, right, and basically every other part of that brisa was exactly the same, right, between the machlokas between Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov and Rabbi Elazar Chisma and Rabbi Akiva and Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri, the only difference was that Rabbi Elazar Chisma points out that while Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov was arguing that there's nothing that the Kohen can do with chametz on Pesach, Rabbi Elazar Chisma is saying, what do you mean? He could use it to burn. He can get hana'ah from it. Now, Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri, if he held like Rabbi Yossi Aglili that chametz on Pesach is mutar ba'ana'ah, then he should have responded to Rabbi Akiva, just like Rabbi Elazar Chisma responded to Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov, which is that, what do you mean that the Kohen is unable to get any benefit from chametz on Pesach? He could use it to burn. It's mutar ba'ana'ah, like Rabbi Yossi Aglili. But Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri did not respond like that. And therefore, it must mean that he agrees with Rabbi Akiva that chametz on Pesach is also ba'ana'ah. Where he disagrees with Rabbi Akiva is that Rabbi Akiva says that by terumah you're paying back the value, and chametz on Pesach is valueless, whereas Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri says that by terumah you're paying back the amount, and therefore even though chametz on Pesach is valueless, it's also ba'ana'ah, you're nonetheless paying back the amount that you ate, and that is why you would pay keren v'chomesh. Tanu Rabbanon, we learn in a brisa, ha'ochel kazayis terumah mishalim keren v'chomesh habashol omer ad she'ebo shvei pruta. Aha. So we have a brisa that says, I'm going to read it again, ha'ochel kazayis terumah. Somebody eats a kazayis of terumah by accident, mishalim keren v'chomesh, he pays back the principal amount plus a fifth. Abashol omer ad she'ebo shvei pruta. Abashol says, well, it would have to be worth a shavar pruta. So the Tanna Kama says that it's based on amount. It's based on if you eat a kazayis of terumah, and Abashol is saying it's based on value, right? Depends if you ate a shavar pruta's worth of it. Okay. My time in the Tanna Kama. How come the Tanna Kama puts all the focus on if it's a kazayis or not? Amar Kra, the pasuk says, "V'ish ki yochal kodesh b'shgaga." A person who eats kodesh, i.e. terumah by accident, v'achila b'kazayis, and achila, eating, is a kazayis worth. V'abashol, my timer, Amar Kra, my timer. How come Abashol says it's not about kazayis? It's not about amount. It's based on if it's a shavar pruta or not. If it has financial significance. Amar Kra v'nosan v'nesina pachos mishvei pruta. Abashol says, well, the pasuk says, right, that same pasuk which talks about a person who eats terumah by accident says v'nosan lakohen es hakodesh, that he has to give to the kohen the kodesh, basically what he ate. So ve'ein nesina pachos mishvei pruta, and giving is at least a shavar pruta, at least the value of a pruta. V'idach nam yaksiv lo yochal. But Abashol, what do you do with the fact that it talks about achila, and achila is a kazayis? Hahu prat lemazek kuda asa. So Abashol says the point of saying yochal, of putting achila, which is generally a kazayis, it means that you have to eat it as opposed to damaging it. That if you eat the terumah by accident, so then you pay back keren v'chomesh. But if you don't eat it, but you damage it instead by accident, you wouldn't pay the additional fifth. You would just pay the value that you damaged. V'Tanna Kama aksiv v'nosan. Now, according to Tanna Kama, who says it's based on a kazayis or not, well, what about the fact that it says v'nosan, which means that it has to be a shvei pruta? Ha'umi baile l'davar roi lios kodesh. So Tanna Kama says, yeah, v'nosan l'kohen es hakodesh doesn't mean that it has to be a shvei pruta. What it means is that which you give the kohen has to be something that is fit to be terumah, right? As we said, like to the exclusion of chametz on Pesach, for example, which is not fit to be terumah. Okay, so that's machlokes between the Tanna Kama and Abashol. Tanna Kama says that you have to eat a kazayas worth of truma in order to be chayiv keren v'chomesh. Abba Shaul says you have to eat a shavuot pruta in order to be chayiv keren v'chomesh. Tanu Rabbanan, the rabbis taught, holchot truma pachos mikazayis, or so somebody who eats truma less than an olive's worth, mishalim is a keren v'enu mishalim is a chomesh, he pays back the principal amount, but he does not have to pay back the additional fifth. This is when he eats less than a kazayis of truma by accident. Heichidami, now what are we talking about? He delays by shavuot pruta keren nami lo lishalim. If this less than a kazayis amount that he ate also has a value of less than a pruta, well then he shouldn't have to pay back anything. It's less than a kazayis, it's less than a pruta, it has no value, no significant value, no significant size either. So what are you going to pay back for? And if it is a shavuot pruta, if it has a value of a pruta, so then shouldn't he also have to pay the chomesh as well if he ate truma that's worth a shavuot pruta, even if it's less than a kazayis? So the Gemara answers la'olam de'isba shavuot pruta. So really it's talking about where this less than a kazayis of truma they ate was worth a pruta. And even so, kevin delays be kazayis, since it doesn't have a kazayis, mishalim is a keren v'enu mishalim is a chomesh, he pays the principal amount but not the chomesh. Okay? Amru Rabbanan kamed Rav Papa. So now the students of Rav Papa were saying this brisa in front of Rav Papa, hadlo ka Abba Shaul, and they were saying, look, this brisa is clearly not Abba Shaul. De'ika Abba Shaul, because if it was Abba Shaul, ha'amar kevin sheish ba shvei pruta, avagav delays be kazayis. Abba Shaul's opinion is, what's important is if it has a shavuot pruta or not. If it does, then you pay keren v'chomesh. If it doesn't, then you don't pay keren v'chomesh. And this brisa is saying that even though the amount of truma that he ate was a shavuot pruta, still he's only paying keren, he's not paying chomesh. You would have to have a kazayis in order to pay keren v'chomesh. So, sounds like it's not like Abba Shaul. Right? Kevin Sheshba Shavuot Pruta Avagav Leis by Kazayis. Amru Rav Papa. So Rav Papa said to them, Afilu Tema Abba Shaul. You can even say that brisa is Abba Shaul, because Abba Shaul Tarte Boy. Because Abba Shaul requires both. He says that not only do you need it to be worth a shavuot pruta, it also has to be a kazayis. Right? So when Abba Shaul says that the truma that you'd has to be a shavuot pruta, that's in addition to it being a kazayis, and if it wasn't a kazayis, you'd pay the keren, but not the chomesh. Umibaya Abba Shaul Tarti, is that true? Does Abba Shaul really require both? Does he really require that the truma be worth a shavuot pruta and also be a kazayis? But we learn in a Mishnah. Abba Shaul Omer says Abba Shaul, as sheyesh bo shavuot pruta chayiv b'tashlumin, as she'ein bo shavuot pruta eino chayiv b'tashlumin. Okay, so Abba Shaul says if the truma that you ate is worth a pruta, then you pay keren v'chomesh. If it's not worth a pruta, so then you don't pay keren v'chomesh. Amru lo, they said to him, lo amru shavuot pruta el inyan me'ila b'vad. They said to him, this concept of a shavuot pruta is only significant regarding me'ila. If you get benefit from kodesh, from something sacred, so then if the benefit that you got was worth a shavuot pruta, so then, if it's by accident, you bring a korban me'ila. But in terms of truma, shavuot pruta is not the important thing. What's important is the kazayis. But by truma, it's only important once there's a kazayis. Right? Meaning, from the response of the chachamim to Abba Shaul, it's clear that Abba Shaul is saying even if it's less than a kazayis. Because meaning, Abba Shaul is saying that what's important when it comes to truma is whether or not it's a shavuot pruta or not. To which they responded and they say, no, even if it's a shavuot pruta, you're still not going to be chayiv keren v'chomesh until it's a kazayis. That is the way they responded, right? What did they say? You're not going to be chayiv until there's a kazayis. Which means that Abba Shaul was saying that you're going to be chayiv even if there's less than a kazayis. And if it was true, like Rav Papa was saying, that according to Abba Shaul, it needs to be not only a kazayis, but also worth a shavuot pruta. Well then, kevin sheyesh bo kazayis mibayile, what they would have responded to him is that no, you don't additionally need it to be a shavuot pruta. Once it's already a kazayis, that would be enough. Right? If Abba Shaul said that you need a kazayis plus a shavuot pruta, that's what they would have said. That you don't also need it to be a shavuot pruta. Once already it's a kazayis, it's enough. But that's not what they said. they said, no, shavar pruta is not enough. It would also have to be a kazayis, which means that Abba Shaul was saying that you're going to be chayiv keren v'chomesh even if it's less than a kazayis. Okay, very good. We're going to stop over here, just because if we don't stop over here, we got to go a little bit deep into the next Amud, and also that opens up a whole nother shtickle can of worms, so we're going to stop over here. That was Daf Lamed Beis of Masechta Pesachim. So really today's Daf discussed terumah, paying back terumah when you ate it by accident, when you ate it on purpose. So our Mishnah said that if you eat terumah by accident, and that terumah is chametz, so you pay back the keren v'chomesh, right? And that is, well, there could be different ways to understanding it. Basically, you'd have to say either that you're paying the amount and not the value, because chametz doesn't have value, but you're paying back the amount. Or you could say that you're paying back the value, but it's like Rabbi Yossi Aglili that chametz on Pesach has value. So go either way, kind of. But we saw that there's basically those two ways of looking at the payment of truma. One way is to say that what you're paying back is the value, and that's like Rabbi Akiva, Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov, and then you have like Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri, who says that what you're paying back is the amount. Okay, fine. Then we talked about the quantity of accidental truma. If you eat truma b'shogeg, how much do you actually have to eat in order to be chayiv keren v'chomesh? Tanakama says you have to eat a kazayis. Abba Shaul says you have to eat a shavar pruta even if it's less than a kazayis. Alright, that was Daf 32. I hope you enjoyed. Peace out.